All right, guys, let's get started. So today we're going to be working on taking the opponent's resources into account. So I'll be giving you guys some problems for calculation, and with each problem, I'll ask you guys a question, either to find the best move or to ask if particular move is working. It'll be up to you guys to figure out if it actually works or not, because it's very important not to assume that all of our ideas are just going to work tactically. Of course, real games are not like puzzles, right, where you know there's a solution. And so it's really important to be able to find the opponent's ideas and resources, because sometimes your idea won't work and it's better to avoid it, basically play something else or something safer. And sometimes you might be able to overcome the opponent's resources anyway, if you're able to kind of make it work. But it's all about trying to be as objective and as clear with your calculation as possible. Yeah, playing white in this game was George Thomas. I'm sure he lost some games to Lasker and other players. One of those guys that is known for losing a lot of famous games. So like I mentioned, I'll put some positions on the board. I'll ask you guys to calculate a move and figure out whether the move is working or if it's not working. And then, of course, you got to justify that with concrete variations. Okay, so let me put the first position on the board. I'm going to turn chat off, guys, just so you can send your responses to me directly. And this is our first problem. And it's black to play here. And the question for you guys, can black play the move knight to e6? So try to make this move work, but see if it's actually working or not. And then let me know what you come up with. And I'll give you guys some time for this one. I'll put 3 minutes on the timer, but I might give you guys more time based on your solutions. But here we go. Question is, can black play knight to e6? Okay, guys, 10 seconds if you haven't submitted your answers yet. I'm going to give you a little bit more time, then we'll review the solution. Oh, by the way, I can actually do polls now. Can't promise I can do this every time, but I've actually never done one. I'm just curious. We'll see what you guys come up with. Although it's very cumbersome, so I don't think I'll do this for all of them, but just for this first one. A couple late joins, I'll just catch everyone up for those of you that joined a little bit late. The topic for today is taking the opponent's resources into account. So I'll be showing you guys some problems, asking some questions, and it'll be up to you to figure out whether a move is playable or not. Okay, so first one here was all about knight to e6. And this was actually played in the game by Oive. And his idea, as you guys pretty much figured out, was that if white takes on d6, rook takes d6, queen takes d6, he has a rook d8 skewer. Queen takes c7, rook takes d1 check, king f2, knight takes c7, black is up the exchange, and of course this is unplayable for white. But yes, of course, there is actually knight d7 in this position, which my guess was maybe missed by either one or both players. Because in the game on knight e6, white ended up playing g3. he believed his opponent. He believed Oive that he can't take on d6. And so they both kind of blundered this. So yeah, it's quite possible they missed knight d7, or maybe black was thinking takes, knight f8 he would have. But of course, in this position, there is knight f6 check. Yeah, very good. So the whole thing just doesn't work for black. But he apparently blundered into it, and the opponent didn't punish him. And I agree with you guys. It's not that hard, but you'd be surprised. You know, the strongest players can blunder almost the simplest things. Maybe it's a little bit psychological. If you expect your idea to work, then you're not going to be super vigilant about what the opponent can do. But hopefully today's training will kind of strengthen that part of our game. So far, so good. Let's go to the next one. As usual with my classes, guys, you're going to start a little bit easier, and we'll slowly get into the harder stuff. Let's go to the next one. Oh, actually, I want to throw the whole PGN in there so the players change. Okay, yeah, this is the game Taraj against Vogel. And our next question is, at this moment, White's last move was bishop h4. Black to play. Can we get away with the move knight d4? So I'll give you guys 3 minutes here. So same thing as before. Does knight d4 work or not? And why or why not? Try to justify your line with concrete variations. Okay, 3 minutes. Okay, about 20 seconds left to make sure to submit your solution if you haven't already. Does knight d4 work for black or not? Okay. All right, let's take a look. So knight d4, of course, very thematic move, right? Because we're trying to get queen takes h2 and queen h1 mates. But of course, white can play rook takes d4. Actually, let me just have you guys visualize. So knight d4, rook takes d4, bishop takes d4. Now h3 there is not great because black will play bishop takes c3. So okay, if the knight had to move away, then white takes on d4. White is really happy, but black gets bishop takes c3, and we can say black is all right. Instead, takes, bishop g3 is the problem. Defending h2 with tempo, attacking the queen, and bishop on d4 is still hanging. If queen b6 or queen c5, then you guys pointed out, there's knight takes d4, queen takes d4, and queen takes g4 at the end. Knight on g4 will be hanging, and white gets 2 pieces for the rook. Okay, so after bishop g3, so once again the line is knight d4, rook takes d4, bishop takes d4, bishop g3, bishop e5. So black is still up the exchange there. So what can white do? Yeah, white has knight takes e5, and queen h5 at the end, going after the knight. Okay, let me put it on the board, because now it's getting a little deep. So takes, bishop g3. Once again, if queen c5 or queen b6, then white is just taking and taking. 2 pieces for the rook, really huge advantage. And on bishop e5, there's takes, and queen h5 I think is easiest. A couple of people asking about knight takes b5. Let's take a look. It looks good. Let's just say takes, queen takes, maybe bishop c6 here. And some endgame like this, yeah, we would get queen takes e5, takes. Yeah, once we get here, it kind of feels a little bit unclear. There's like bishop e4, and we can't take on g7 because of rook g8. The 2 pawns on the queen side, I mean, could be nice for white, but yeah, not as good as queen h5. Yeah. If bishop takes e5, I think it's kind of similar. Basically, black has like good compensation, or white has good compensation, I should say, for the exchange, although material is very close to equal, like bishop and 2 pawns. But yeah, queen h5, we win the piece without giving up one of our own. So this one is, yeah, just lost for black. Okay, so not that easy to calculate all this, of course, but once black plays knight to d4, it's now too late to miscalculate anything, right? So if we play this move, and as you guys can imagine, this was played in the game, Tarash, of course, spotted this one and, yeah, won very smoothly. Yeah, of course, if we miss this one idea, then, or even takes queen h5, that's unfortunate, but game over, and we needed to be more vigilant about the opponent's ideas. Okay, so it's really not easy, but a lot of you guys got that one, so nice job. Let's go to the next one. Okay, and this one actually comes right out of the opening, so we'll get to the key position here. Takes. Okay, this is our next key moment. It's black to play. If we go the immediate c takes d5, then white will play knight c3. And something like e6, knight b5, white is going to be a little bit better there. So the question for black is, can we go bishop takes b1 in this position? If white just recaptures, then c takes d5, black is basically okay there. So the question is, can you make bishop takes b1 work, or is there some kind of problem? Okay, let me put some time on the board. 3 minutes. Again, I might give you guys a little bit more time. But black to play, can you make bishop takes b1 work? Okay, 20 seconds. If you haven't submitted your solution yet, go ahead and do so. Okay, a lot of you guys got it, but I think I managed to trick a few of you as well, so that's cool. So yeah, bishop takes b1. It would be great if it worked. Once again, if white had to play rook takes b1 here, then c takes d5, and black is absolutely fine. Knight comes out to c6, e6, knight f6. We control this nice b4 square, and we're very, very, very solid. So the only problem is, of course, d takes c6. Kind of nice in-between move, threatening c takes b7. Now, a lot of players might say, aha, I have bishop e4, and I saved the piece, and if c7, there's knight c6. But, of course, once we reach this position, we find that white has the absolute stunning rook takes a7. Takes c7, and black is completely lost. The pawn is promoting, and it's just game over. So very easy to miss this one move, and then that's it. Game over. And of course, we don't find out that we missed something until the opponent, takes 5 minutes here, plays d takes c6, and then we realize, we probably missed something. So very important to watch out for this stuff and try to be really, really careful, again, ahead of time, right? Because this rook takes a7, this had to be found in our calculation. This did happen in the game, except in the game, black ended up playing knight takes c6 here, which is, of course, the safer move once you realize bishop e4 is just losing, rook takes b1, and then, okay, white was up a clean pawn. There have actually been a couple of games like this, and Julius Perlis is not the only player that has fallen into this trap. But all right, now you guys are aware. Good work so far. Let's keep moving. Let's go to the next one. Okay, kind of a famous game, but that's all right. We'll might be a review for some of you guys. White to play. Try to find the best continuation. That's it. No hints for this one. Just try to find the strongest line. But keep our lesson topic in mind. The opponent might have some resources that we have to account for. And okay, let me give you guys 3 minutes for this one again. Maybe a little more. We'll see. Okay, so key move we got to calculate here is queen to e5, which maybe you guys rejected already because of bishop f6. And then on queen takes f5, there's rook takes f4, and that doesn't look very nice for white. But try to make it work. Queen e5, bishop f6, and treat that position as if it was white to play and win. Like if it was like, well, typical puzzle. So a little bit of time left. That's kind of the new question here. Queen e5. Why can't black go bishop f6? What does white have? Okay, so yeah, on queen e5, again, this move would be very strong, hitting this, putting a lot of pressure on g7. Main concern is bishop f6, what to do on this, because if you don't have a move here, then okay, why? Queen e5 is just the blunder. So queen takes f5, again, rook takes f4, and white's attack doesn't succeed. But white has rook takes g7. Really, really nice. And everything in black's position collapses. So if king takes or rook takes, and there's queen takes f6, then rook takes e6, knight is hanging. If bishop takes g7, then very important to see we have queen takes f5, followed by rook takes e6, and that's winning. And lastly, okay, knight takes, there's queen takes f6 as well. So this was just game over. Black resigned after this one. And of course, this was very important to see. Now, bishop f6 wasn't the best defense. g6 was a better try. But then, okay, white has some options here. Knight d4, I think, is quite a nice move. With idea, if takes, there's queen c7 check. And queen on e8 is hanging. I think even stronger is this very nice move, rook ge1. It's just tripling on the knight, and of course, the rook cannot be taken. Oops, queen f6. So white has a couple options here. I think queen d6. I mean, it looks nice for white. Black can probably still try to defend like queen c8, but certainly white is making progress. Yeah. Another nice idea was to go knight c1, just in the starting position. Not really a tactical one, more just positional move, bringing the knight to d3 and then trying to get the knight to e5. And yeah, if this was your idea, this was definitely a good idea as well. Okay, but this is kind of a nice example of like overcoming resistance, because a lot of times we have some idea, but then we see a refutation or just something, oh, bishop f6, and doesn't feel right. But in many of these cases, the line might actually still be working. You just have to kind of make it work. You got to push through and actually calculate deeper and look for deeper resources. I think Sepper said that it was quite easy after I gave the hint, like queen e5, bishop f6, and now white to play. Yeah, but the thing is that during the game, you can kind of give yourself this hint on your own. And this is something a lot of players do. They they're optimistic. They really try to make something work. And if there is a solution to be found, then they make sure they find it. But it's very, very tough. This is one of the hardest things about calculating, of course, because in a game, again, you never know if the idea is supposed to work or if it's not supposed to work. But psychologically, you can kind of tell yourself, like, okay, I have to make this work. I have to make this work. And then vice versa, you should also try to refute it. You should spend just as much energy trying to refute the move. for your opponent, right? Because if the idea is not working, then you definitely don't want to just play a losing move. Okay, let's go to the next one. All right, this is black to play. And question for you guys, can black play rook takes c3? We'll put 3 minutes on the clock. And you guys let me know whether this move is playable or not. Okay, 25 seconds to get your answers in, if you haven't submitted already. Does rook take c3 work for black? On first glance, it seems to just give up a rook for nothing, but okay, black has some ideas to follow up. Biggest hint was that Tall is playing white. Yeah, he would never allow such a trick without having something up his sleeve. Yeah, I don't know the full story behind the game. It would be interesting to find out if he had this trap in mind. My guess would be yes. But yeah, rook takes c3 unfortunately does not work for black. Let's take a look. So takes, okay, it looks like such a cool move. And if it was a puzzle rush, I would just play it without thinking. You know, because queen takes, we have the back rank mate. BC, of course, queen is hanging. And if rook d8 check, then bishop f8. It seems like everything is covered. And again, we have the back rank and everything is hanging. If queen d1 or something like queen takes b2, rook c1 looks super scary for white. But of course, if you guys, a lot of you noticed, bishop f4, an absolutely stone cold move. The kind of move you don't forget. If you miss during an OTB game, your opponent hits you with this one, that's going to stick with you for a long time. And just like that, black can resign. Because now the back rank is secure, so the rook is now hanging, queen takes c3, and of course, bishop h6 is a very painful threat to deal with. Yeah. Okay, very good. Let's go to the next one. All right, let's do... Alrighty, let's do this one. White to play. I actually don't know the player names here. Okay, white to play. Question for you guys. Does knight takes f7 work? So, 3 minutes. All right, guys, I'm gonna give you a little bit more time here. Yeah, so if knight takes f7, rook takes f7, then what's going on? What's the evaluation there? One zero. Yeah, so that line is good for white. Rook takes f7, white takes, king takes, queen takes e6 check. King f8, queen takes d7, and white has won 2 more pawns and is now, yeah, there's totally winning. Okay, so the problem with knight takes f7 is rook to f8. and then the knight is very short on squares. Main move seems to be putting the knight back on e5, because it seems to be the safest square. But then key line, a few of you pointed this one out. After knight goes back to e5, black goes rook takes f1 check. We have to take with the knight to keep the knight on e5 defended. And then let's pause here. So if you guys haven't spotted the issue yet, let me give you a little bit of time. So once again, knight takes f7, rook f8, knight back to e5, rook takes f1 check, knight takes f1, black to play. Because otherwise it seems like white just kind of got away, you know, took another pawn in front of the king. It looks pretty good. So what's the issue after? Knight takes f7, rook f8, knight e5, rook takes f1, knight takes f1. Yeah. Knight takes e5, queen e5, queen f2, queen g3, and then bishop takes g2. Let's put it on the board. Now, there is a question whether it is necessary to calculate all this just to see that it's not worth it. A more practical player might just discard the line altogether, thinking, it's not worth it, which I think is an interesting choice, but it's also good to be able to calculate these things out, because it is very, very forcing. And it's just a matter of keeping the position clearly visualized in our mind, looking for all the most forcing moves, not for ourselves, but for the opponent as well. And then, okay, it does feel like a pretty direct line to calculate. After rook f8, oh yeah, I think this is the best move, knight d8, but it's not, it's nothing special. Knight e5, takes, queen f2, queen g3, and then if the visualization is not fully accurate here, then you might not notice black has bishop takes g2, which is a very easy thing to blunder at the end of a line. But if you're vigilant and always looking for these resources, then these moves generally won't escape you. Yeah. So yeah, in the initial position, what was better? Basically anything other than knight takes f7, knight g4 is not bad. I think, yeah, actually Engine also gives this resource, which is quite interesting, knight c6, with the idea that if black takes, white has knight f5, hitting the rook e8, and then knight takes g7 is apparently very strong for white. Queen h5, and the rooks come in, and black's king is in big trouble. But okay, this is a different exercise. The point of this problem was to figure out why knight takes f7 is just not worth going for. And I think you guys pretty much nailed it. So nice job. Let's go to the next one. All right, let's see here. A couple of some long ones. Okay, let's do this one. Okay, this is white to play. And for this one, I'm going to let you guys know what I want you to calculate. And I want you to calculate the move knight takes h7 and try to make it work. I'm going to give you more time for this one, give you 5 minutes, and then we'll discuss. Okay, let's start going through the lines. So, the first thing we can calculate is just the most forcing variation. So let's say knight takes h7, knight takes, bishop takes h7, king takes, and there white plays rook takes g7, just continuing to open up the king and sacrifice. And so the line runs takes, rook takes g7, king takes g7, queen g5 check, king h7, queen h5 check, king g7, rook g1 check, and then if black doesn't want to get mated, they have to play which move? I think a few of you guys found this one in your calculation. Bishop g3, very good. But that doesn't fully save the position for black. Let me just put it on the board, just so we're all on the same page. Because we end up in an endgame. Number one, very good just to see that this move is legal. Otherwise, okay, it's just clear mate. But this endgame is still very, very nice for white. We have a bunch of checks, and so we always have a ton of play against the king, and it's very difficult for black to push any of their pawns without really allowing some attack. Like, for example, let's say rook d8. I was just thinking here, like king c2, d3, king d2. And it's going to be very difficult for black to create real counterplay, where white just wants to go queen g5, h5, and slowly win. So white is much better here. This is, I think, winning endgame. We're very close to winning. So this is not really the issue for white. The issue, I'm kind of, at least this is what I suspect, because I'm kind of speculating here. Because in the game, white ended up playing bishop e2, and then it was just worse. So clearly he had a reason that he didn't go for this kind of direct sacrifice. I think he was probably worried about this move, bishop f4. In between move hitting the queen. Now white can go knight takes f6 check, but then king h8. I think this might have been black's idea. Where, let me just put this on the board real quick. If white moves the queen somewhere, say king h8, queen moves, takes, then white actually doesn't really have much in this position. Black is going f5, rook g8, and if anything, black is actually better. Because white just doesn't have an attack, and the bishop on d3 is going to just be really terrible after f5. Okay, so that's the question for you guys. Can you make this idea work anyway? So that's your problem. Knight takes h7, bishop f4, knight takes f6 check, king h8, and white to play. Okay, a few of you guys have spotted it. So let me put it on the board. So takes, bishop f4, takes, king h8. Now there are a couple moves here that don't work. Rook g5 is pretty, but I think black can just take and put the bishop on h6. Yeah. But instead, white has rook takes g7. Very nice. And again, I suspect, not seeing this idea, white decided to not go for the sacrifice. Because otherwise, what do you do here? gf6 is coming, and again, white is actually worse there. But this one is super cool. Of course, threatening mate, and if king takes g7, knight h5 check wins the bishop. Now, it feels like a shocking resource, and to me it really is. And I don't think I would have found this one myself during a game. But it is findable, right? Especially once we kind of frame it in the right way. Like, okay, we have this line, we have to make it work. We have to try to look for any possible resources. And once, okay, someone tells you, like, yeah, there's something to find there, then, okay, it becomes much more automatic. You start looking at all those forcing moves. But during the game, of course, we're programmed, like on bishop f4, our first thought is, oh, where are we moving the queen? Maybe we can find a square for the queen. And our brain starts moving the queen without taking a pause, you know, treating it like, okay, fresh position, Canada moves. Because if I just give you guys like this problem, I would say this is like a nice warm-up. If we just started from here, if I said, okay, white to play, what would you do? I think you guys find rook takes g7 very quickly. I mean, you found it quickly in your visualization, knowing that there was something there. So it's all about kind of accessing this power during the game. But I think white is more than maybe even slightly worried. Like because if you go for this position and then move the queen, gf6, f5, like it can get pretty bad. Anyway, I want to give you guys one more puzzle. I know we're a little bit over, so if you have to go, that's fine. But if you can stay for one more, that would be great. Let's okay, I think we get everything in this puzzle. Yeah, I think we looked at all the key points. All right, guys, black to play. I'll give you up to 5 minutes here. Black to play, find the best continuation. Yeah, this is studied like, but it comes from a real game that I changed. So this wasn't the actual game. So it is a study. Technically, I created this problem myself, but it comes from a game. It comes from analysis of a game. Okay, guys, let's start going through. So, of course, the critical move here is going to be f2. What happens if black just tries to promote the pawn? Now, you can go king takes d6 in this position. And after king takes g3, king takes d5, king takes f3. This would be pretty drawish. Black goes b5, a5, creates counterplay. It's going to be very, very difficult for white to win this one. I think it is drawn. Like white can stop the pawns and then everything is safe, but then neither side will be able to make progress. So this one is relatively safe for black. And during the game, you always have these choices, right? You can make a draw or try to see if you can find better. But this one might not be necessary even because f2, key move here is bishop e5. We have to see this one. And yeah, so this is, let's say the second point. Like number f2 is 1 point, bishop e5 is second point. Anything else for white doesn't really work. If check and rook c1, then rook g1. So bishop b5. And here black can play rook e3. Of course, promoting is not good. Then white gets rook f6 check, takes, and white is winning this one. They have enough pawns. So promoting is not good. Black does have rook e3. And this one is also seems pretty safe for black. Seems like white doesn't have better than at some point just going check and going for this endgame. Let's say we take this one or we take on f2. Let's say this one. This one's also very, very drawish because white's king is very active here. So black can get like two pass pawns on the queen side, but this g pawn is really strong and creates enough counterplay for a draw. But black is not losing that one. So this is the safe choice. And then the question is, can black find something in this position? Okay, so yeah, what else can black do? We have a draw, but maybe we can try to find better. So rook h3 check, very good. King takes, white promotes, and queen is strong. But what about rook h3 check, king g4? Yeah, then we have f5, bravo. Once again, promoting rook f6 check, white wins the queen and white is winning. But after f5, white has no way to stop black from queening with safety. Yeah, king takes rook or king takes pawn, then black promotes with check. G takes f6 en passant, then there's no rook f6 winning the queen. So yeah, very, very cool, very, very pretty and creative. I don't know exactly what happened in the game. I think it was some version of this line. I switched it up a little bit because in the game, if I remember correctly, I think black won with the same trick, but if I remember correctly, black also had like no options. So the position was a little bit different, but basically, no, actually, I think this was the game. I think this was the exact game, but yeah, from black's point of view, of course, they didn't have to go f2, but once f2 is played, now it's too late, and white is losing. So Yeah, very nice trick there to find f5. All right, guys, that's going to do it for the class. So to sum up, sometimes your ideas will work, sometimes they don't. And the only way to figure it out during the game, of course, is to be extremely careful and precise when it comes to identifying resources. And it can be resources for the opponent, but also resources for yourself overcoming the opponent's resources, which is maybe one of the hardest things to do when it feels like a line is not working and you're just not seeing the right idea. But hopefully this was some good practice and will help you guys be a lot more vigilant in your future games. All right, guys, that's going to do it. I will catch you all next week. Hopefully you have a good weekend, and I'll see you guys next time. Have a good one.